Hi everyone, and welcome to Bridging the Gap. I'm your host, Kelly Lovell, and this week I'm joined by our expert guest, Janice MacDonald. Janice is an award-winning serial entrepreneur and corporate strategist. She is president of the Beacon Agency, a boutique firm that offers customized breakthrough ideas in entrepreneurship, leadership, and business strategies for clients around the world. She is also co-founder of This Space Works. Janice served as board chair of Women in Communications and Technology from 2013 to 2015. During that time, she helped drive its financial turnaround and rebrand. She is now chair of the Ottawa chapter of the International Women's Forum, as well as board director with Futurpreneur. Janice has such a diverse background that I'm so excited that she's joining us today. Thank you again for your time.
Thanks, Kelly. I'm excited to be here with you today.
Could you perhaps start us off by sharing a little bit more about your journey and the focus of your work?
Sure. So in terms of journey, one of the consistent ribbons in my life has been entrepreneurship. So it's the only formal job I've ever held, first in the music industry and then apparel and accessories. And as you mentioned, now with the Beacon Agency, one of the things that we have just completed and has been released is a national study in Canada on women entrepreneurs and their approach to risk called A Force to Reckon With. And that was done in partnership with Carleton University and sponsored research by Bank of Montreal.
Can you walk me through a little bit back further of kind of your journey? And so you just most recently, for our listeners, entered into the WXN Hall of Fame for Canada's most powerful women. To be in the Hall of Fame, you have to won the award 3 times. So you certainly
4 times actually.
4 times. Okay,
after you've won 3 times, and if you're nominated for a 4th time, then the advisory group can decide to bestow that amazing honor on you. So I'm very fortunate to be in that category. It was a really beautiful celebration and quite humbling because, as you know, as a recipient yourself of a Top 100 award, it's a very inspiring evening, and you are surrounded by incredible women who are doing amazing things, so you think, wow, what we have in this room is enough to completely change the world, in all the best ways. I mean, would you agree? Was that kind of the feeling you had when you were in the room?
Well, certainly. With any award, I often think it's not really the award itself. The best value is really just getting into the room with all the recipients and in that incredible group of curated individuals who are like that just raise the bar out of the roof. you think you're at one level, and then you meet the peers, and you just see the bar just skyrocket. And I think that's definitely so true with something like Most Powerful Women.
Yeah.
So looking at your journey, though, could you walk us back a little bit more of kind of how you found your way, so to speak? Because you certainly have entered into several different industries, but obviously you have that common thread of corporate strategy and entrepreneurship. But when you first started, how did you end up to where you are today?
Sure. Well, my experience is probably like many people. It's not linear. There's starts and stops and all the way along. And that's part of, I think, what makes it so interesting. So right out of grad school, I started my first business with my partner, and that was in the music industry in 1991 and 1992, pardon me. And we opened our first retail music store that had great success, and we continued to open more stores. And so a very fun and exciting time to be in the music industry, particularly in Canada, when our industry was, really growing and thriving. I mean, it continues to do so today, but, the music landscape is different now with, downloads and less about physical goods, although vinyl, we're seeing a nice resurgence there. But very fun business to be in, and certainly gets you really prepared for the entrepreneurial journey, because if you want to talk about an industry that's been completely disrupted, the music industry is a perfect example. And, as we see other industries, if you think about media, they are seeing all of those kind of challenges now. So that's been the sort of start of it. And then in the earliest days of online, we took our business online and had tremendous success there. We had a low Canadian dollar at the time, and so we had a really successful strategy to sell music globally. And so we were in particular focused on the US, and we're Time Magazine, Smart Money Magazine, the Wall Street Journal, all called our company at that time the place to buy music online. So that was very exciting. And this was, before we really had startup culture. You just opened up. You didn't start up. And so again, kind of we buckled in for a wild ride, and that was very fun, and twists and turns all the way along. And I would say, Kelly, the other kind of ribbon, so entrepreneurship has remained, and I mentioned to you that most recently completing that national study on women entrepreneurs and their approach to risk, how fun that has been. Because essentially spending time with my tribe right across the country was a very rewarding experience. But the other thing that I would say has been a ribbon throughout my career has been a commitment to lifelong learning. And when you look at the pace of change in business in general, and certainly the impact of tech and speed of change is getting faster and faster, a commitment to lifelong learning, in my view, is a great protective factor in not only my career, but I would urge it for anyone to see it as a way to stay relevant and in demand.
And then with that in mind, do you have any advice for young entrepreneurs who are just starting on how they could start to shape that narrative and, like you said, kind of stay relevant in a rapidly changing dynamic industry?
Mm-hmm. Well, a couple of things. One, I think it's really important to read very widely, and because sometimes what you're seeing or what's working in one industry will either be relevant and useful in your industry, and if you're not aware of it, it could basically bury you. But if you are reading widely, you'll tend to see the patterns that and be able to identify them and see where opportunities might exist in your own industry and apply those to your advantage. I think that's a tremendous resource. I think talking to people and then listening and asking great questions. Curiosity is, I think, another element of my success. I'm just curious by nature, and frankly, why is my favorite word. I ask it all the time. Why? And so maintaining, that childlike curiosity is helpful because it allows you to uncover, new ideas, perhaps creative approaches, and just fresh thinking on problems that you may face. I think for young entrepreneurs in particular, there can be a sense that, mentors and people out there that have gone before may not be helpful, which I think is, at least in my experience, inaccurate. I've found that there's a great willingness to help young entrepreneurs. So I would encourage all young entrepreneurs to seek out mentors as soon as possible, because it's a great way to test your ideas. It's a safe place to, ask for help and get some additional insights. I know for myself, because I do quite a bit of mentoring, if I can help somebody stop them from making some of the mistakes that I made, then I think that's hopefully valuable to them. I know it's gratifying for me.
Well, certainly. And I think part of the stress that young entrepreneurs face, or just young professionals in general, is very much that point of this idea that this industry changes so quickly that how do we prepare for the unknown? What skills will we actually even require when we're trying to pick out school or anything like that? We're kind of picking something out that we might be in a job that doesn't even exist yet by the time we're done with school. So I think that causes a lot of pressure to try and have things figured out when it's really hard to do so. Are there any skills that you have found through your kind of varying journey that you see has been like a common thread that kind of has helped you regardless, that would be good for someone to form?
Well, I believe that communication, effective communication, is critical to the success of any individual, whether it's in an entrepreneurial sense. If you think about it specifically for an entrepreneur, typically, what are you doing? You're pitching constantly. And if you're not pitching, you're selling, and, you know, converting people into fans of you and what you have to offer. So, but even for young executives to be able to bring your ideas forward and, you know, create buy-in from others, you need to be able to do so through effective communication. So to me, that's a timeless skill that, you know, with a focus on you can get so much better at it. And so to me, that's, you know, an area where I think you could see value. If I look at my own career, one of the areas that I did focus on is conflict resolution. And at St. Paul University in Ottawa, there is a globally recognized institute called the Canadian Institute for Conflict Resolution that teaches and certifies individuals in conflict resolution. And so I found that to be very useful as well, because you know, business is people. And so to be able to have effective resolution to problems that come up and to have the tools and approaches can also prove to be very effective. And a lot of people avoid conflict, and it can have significant you know, disadvantages to goals that you know, a young entrepreneur or entrepreneur in general may have. So I think that's another you know, and that's separate from learn how to code and other kind of things. But to me, those are skills that would be, in my view, have, you know, lasting value in a career, regardless of the company that you work for that doesn't exist, on the product that you work for that hasn't been created. These to me are timeless skills.
Well, a lot of what you describe as really the soft skills, and I think you're right that they're more timeless than a hard skill will be a very kind of specific industry, but soft skills can apply to like conflict resolution. When you're thinking that, like immediately that popped up in my head was like things, well, like social media. Like if you look at a brand, conflict resolution in itself, sometimes you're doing customer service through social media. If you're doing PR, you have to kind of diffuse issues. There's different things. With that in mind, do you have a kind of like a tip that you've learned for conflict resolution, or a good approach or strategy?
Well, I think a straightforward thing to consider in general that's very helpful is to uncover the shared interests that you have. So that could be with your customer, that could be with your employee, whoever you may have an issue with. Likely there are areas that you agree on, and often problems result because people spend a lot of time defining all the areas where they don't agree. But if you can focus in on the areas where you do agree and see that you have shared interest and, shared values, this is a wonderful way forward in order to be able to, you know, build a pathway forward where you can see, okay, here are all the places where we are aligned, and so from that we likely can find a resolution. But if you can't see things from the other person's point of view, then you're going to have a hard time finding a positive way forward.
In a lot of sense of empathy and perspective seems to kind of relate to what you're saying as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Which is very different from sympathy, right? So empathy really is around, it's very, sympathy and empathy are not interchangeable words. And so that, you know, to have an insight into how the other person feels and the way that they're looking at things is truly going to be invaluable. And so it's easy to get focused on yourself and, you know, the goals that you're trying to achieve, which of course are important, but, you know, really the present day and as we go forward, collaboration is so critical, and we see this more and more, the power of collaboration. So in order to effectively do that, you really need to be able to see things from the other person's side, or the other company's side, or the, you know, just even the person on the other side of the table. What is it that's important to them, and how do I bridge that with what I need to achieve?
Collaboration is an interesting topic because as we're increasingly coming into industries that are becoming kind of oversaturated, there's startups everywhere, technologies coming out of the wazoo, so to speak. So how do you kind of overcome that, I guess, innate desire to want to compete and have your own voice versus decide to collaborate and kind of amalgamate your ideas? Is there like do you have any tips on kind of when to identify collaboration opportunities?
I don't know about tips, but I think it depends on what you're working on. But often there can be a very nice reciprocal kind of approach. So you may have a goal, somebody else has a goal. If you come together, it doesn't mean you have to give up your goal, nor do they. But ideally, you're kind of working hand in hand, and likely being able to amplify your effect because you've come together and you see where there is alignment, and it allows you this opportunity to, whether it's sharing business. So I'll give recommendations to you, you give some to me, because we're not competing. We're working together. But also, when you collaborate, you're bringing forward what you have, and your other partners do the same. And to me, what's exciting about collaboration is it often takes you to whole new places that you just would not be able to achieve on your own. The power of the diverse group coming together. We know the research is already strong on why diversity is so important, and that diversity of thought allows you, and coming together in that collaborative environment allows you to do amazing things. And so I think it's very exciting.
Oftentimes with collaboration and those, like you said, businesses, people, kind of building those relationships, a lot of times I find those relationships are rooted based on kind of a mutual respect or synergy with a narrative of what you're doing and what their narrative is, or what they hope their narrative can be. When looking at your corporate narrative, or kind of not even your corporate, just your brand narrative, because it could be also just a personal brand,
Sure.
what do you feel is more important, consistency or resonance?
Well, I don't see it as an either or. So I think the two go hand in hand. I think it's really important to know what you stand for and why you stand for it, so that, sense of purpose and the alignment around values, and then go and find partners that match those. And those are the people you want to collaborate with. It doesn't mean that they think the same as you, but the underpinnings of why you're coming together will mean you're consistent, because you're going to be aligned in terms of value, and you're going to resonate with each other and with the community that you want to reach, because there is that deep sense of purpose and an understanding and an appreciation and a respect for what the goals are and collectively what you want to achieve. So to me, and even quite simply, Kelly, just working with people that you like to work with, and why do we typically like to work with them? Often because of that alignment of purpose and of values and mission, and this commitment to say, we want to change the world in these positive ways, and here's how we're going to do it. I see that as the way forward. And of course, in terms of brand, therefore you're consistent, therefore you're aligned, you're operating in a way where everything is truly aligned. And it also makes it, I think, easier for people to understand you and your company and what you want to achieve.
Well, in my experience, I've found, I kind of to that point, sometimes collaborations can help shape your narrative at the start when you're newer. So when you first start off, sometimes your narrative could be a little bit, I don't want to say fuzzy, but broader, because you haven't dug deep enough to find that underlying core quite as you can't articulate it maybe as much as like a veteran who's been in the industry forever and has made a very strong footprint with their narrative. So I find, in my experience, if you align and collaborate with those, like you said, that align with the values and are synergistic to what you want for your narrative, sometimes they can help others understand your purpose.
Yeah, I think that's great. Sort of the, in a sense, reflected glory of someone else. If they're clear about what they do and what they stand for, partnering with you by extension you're able to kind of say, yeah, I stand for all those things too. I think that's a great way to look at it. And I think it's not so much that they're shaping your narrative as maybe allowing you to express it in a way that is clearer. And again, as we talked about that whole communication piece, as we look forward, what's important and what matters is this ability to convey your ideas effectively, whether that's in terms of a pitch or a startup, or to your customers so that they understand why what you're selling matters, or your brand in general out to the public so they can come and find you. So that the clarity around communicating your ideas is really effective and important, I believe.
Yes, clarity is key. In my experience, I've learned that simplicity and clarity go hand in hand too. As a keen entrepreneur, I started off with like this. My introduction would be, and I do this and this and this, and I found that the more you kind of infuse into your message, so to speak, the easier it is to lose people sometimes, and that the simpler and the shorter you can make that statement, the easier it is for people to understand and kind of get behind or resonate with it.
Yeah, I would agree.
From your experience and having worked in these different sectors with varying clients and such, is there kind of a moment or like a past experience that comes to mind that was kind of a learning moment for you that has kind of shaped your journey?
Learning in what sense, Kelly?
Learning in terms of, it could have been maybe a mistake, or it could have been just something that changed your perspective, that helped kind of shape to make you successful where you are today.
Sure. Well, if I think about my retail stores that I had for 2 decades that were award-winning and very successful, I think the key to our success, quite simply, yes, we had very effective, we had effective marketing, we had a really strong brand. All of those things were true, but the brand promise and what really made the company be able to compete against bigger and better funded national brands and international brands, why we were able to compete and win, really, it's the simplest thing, and it was the people. We always had the absolute best people in our stores, people who loved what they did, who saw what they did and the purpose of and loved music and all of that. And so I think no matter what your company is a deep appreciation for and a real solid focus on who, and if you think about it, at least for young entrepreneurs, for startup, those first early hires, they are the people who are helping you set your company culture. So are you picking people that accurately reflect the vision that you have for your company? And it is very hard when you're starting out as a young entrepreneur and you have a dream for what you want your business to be. It's hard, as your baby, so to speak, is growing, you have to bring in other people and you have to extend trust to them to help you achieve your goals. It's the only way you're going to grow. But in order to do so, in my view, you have to be really hyper vigilant about choosing the right team members to join you, and then ensure that if you're seeing things are going off brand and off sort of the values and purpose piece, that you need to bring that back and that you're conveying that effectively so that people understand what it is that you stand for and what the company wants to achieve, and that they also see how their role is critical to the overall success both of the company, but also in achieving that purpose that you have.
I think that is very powerful in the sense of viewing your communication and your mission. Sometimes we view as, how can we convey our purpose outwards to our consumers, our potential partners and buyers? But to your point, those communications and that sense of purpose is just as valuable internally with your staff as it is maybe on your external narrative.
Well, in fact, Kelly, I would say it's more important. So your internal has to be right, before you take it outside, because if you say that your brand promise is XYZ and then people come and experience it and it's nothing like what your brand promise is, you have a big problem, and they're not coming back. So you need complete alignment with your staff that not only do they believe it, but they want to achieve it, and that their daily activities demonstrate that alignment. And that's how you achieve a powerful and effective brand. And that's how you get complete loyalty from your customers as well. If they go in and the experience that they're having with your store, with your company, with whatever their touch points are with you and as I said, the organization, brand, company, whatever, if it is exactly what they hoped, and frankly even better, they're going to stay, and they're going to love staying, and they want to stay, and of course you want to keep them. But it's really around, to me, it's always the people. It has to be the people. And it's great to have powerful and effective messaging, but if it falls flat when somebody comes in and to your physical location as an example, or when they work with you and they don't feel that they're getting what was promised, then you really do have a big problem, because now you have a problem that they're disappointed. And that's not to say that you won't have, on occasion, there's going to be people who don't have a good experience. But that also is, again, an additional opportunity to turn that experience into something that can be not only saved, but if done right, then they can be a powerful advocate for you and your brand, because you've delivered again on the promise that you have.
Well, I think that really does speak, and you see that even in industry, of there's certain organizations that people choose just because they just have amazing customer service,
right?
And they stay with it. And it doesn't matter if the pricing is different or if there's a better deal elsewhere, but they stay with the company because they love the customer service or the support that company provides them.
Yeah, exactly. It's broadly speaking, a consumer will test you a few times, and then if you continue to deliver on that promise, as long as you do that, you have them. They are not interested in looking elsewhere because they are satisfied with the experience that they're having with you, with your product, etc. And so, again, focusing particularly when you think about young entrepreneurs and starting up a new business, you have to think really carefully about the people that are there. I always had complete confidence that what would be happening in any of my stores when I wasn't there was still the same level of quality of service that I myself would offer. And so that also gives me huge confidence, and it would, that confidence is equally conveyed back to the staff, who know that you trust and appreciate their efforts.
I love the synergies of the fact that when you're saying this, I'm just kind of envisioning kind of like, you shine the beacon of light, so to speak, on your purpose, both internally and externally, and finding people who are able to shine that light for you is valuable. And I think that's so synergistic, that coming full circle back as your president of the Beacon Agency,
yes.
And helping clients do just that around the world.
Yeah, exactly. It's with a focus, getting the simple things right. And I loved how you talked about this simplicity and clarity, really focusing on getting what seems, simple, but it's getting the people stuff right, really allows you to take on big, hairy, audacious goals, because you've got people who say, yeah, I want to do that. I'm excited about that. And so, if you look at sort of classic change management, all the energy is wasted around people that are resisting going in the new direction, and how exhausting that is for everybody. So, that doesn't mean that on occasion we didn't have people that didn't want to go forward on the new journey, and that can happen. But again, if we go back to the communication piece, if you're able to say with clarity, hey, this is where we're going, you seem to not be excited about where we're going, and have some of those honest discussions, I think that can be really powerful too. Not everybody wants to go forward in that new direction. That's okay.
Well, I just want to thank you, Janice, I really appreciate you sharing some of this advice with our listeners. Like you said, the simple things of communications, those soft skills, the people that we sometimes might overlook as we're focused on the bottom line or that growth can really make a difference and, like you said, kind of shape that narrative or the tone that will set you on the path. Mm-hmm. For those of you listening, it's now your turn. What do you think? Add your thoughts to this discussion using the hashtag Bridging the Gap on Twitter. And remember to give this podcast a thumbs up if you like some of the advice that Janice is sharing with us today.